first off, I just want to say I apologize if I keep going like this. I never talk with a mic, and so I like to move my hands and do all that, and it's really hard for me to hold the mic. And so, anyways, with that, like Al said, I graduated from CSU, or she didn't say this, but I went to CSU, graduated last year, got a degree in biology with a concentration in anatomy and physiology. I was pre-med. My favorite conspiracy is actually my boss, T-Coy, turned me on to this a couple weeks ago. Has anyone ever seen the show on Netflix called Finding Hitler? No one? Anyone seen that? You seen that? I know you've seen it. I watched it with you. Anyways, it's this conspiracy that Hitler actually didn't die in World War II. Sarah's shaking her head at me, but she knows it's true. No. Okay, here's the deal. When you look at the facts, I'm convinced. I'm a fact guy. And you look at the evidence and you looked at the facts. I think Hitler escaped and lived in Argentina. Fact. Anyways, with that, I'm gonna try and get into this now. Something I've always been interested, like I said, I was a biology major. I'm always kind of like the show me guy. Like you say something, you say, hey, this is the way it is, blah, blah, blah. Like I want to see the evidence for that. So with that, I've always kind of been like interested in like science and these laws. And something that's really fascinated me is I remember back in my high school physics class, just learning about these constants and these laws that govern the physical interactions in the universe. So I know you didn't want to come for a physics lesson, but there are, whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you see them or not, there are these laws and there are these physical interactions that govern everything. So you don't see them, you don't feel them, but every day, every 24/7, they govern all your interactions. So think like Newton's first law. Does anyone know that off the top of their head? Cordell, I saw you raise your hand. Newton's first law, you know what that is?
Object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah, there you go. Object in motion stays in motion. Thank you. Yeah, clap for him. Newton's third law. It says for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so I always imagine this like, if you were like pushing against a wall, there's like an invisible man like pushing back at me. I don't know why I envisioned it that way. But if you're a science major, you're an engineer, you just know this. Maybe you had physics with Brian Jones. Man's a super weird guy. I really wonder what he does in his off time. But or if you're an engineer, you had to take the other one. Sorry. But just like there are these invisible physical interactions that govern our universe, there's also these spiritual interactions that govern and can have a huge effect on our relationship with God. So real quick, I just want to look at one of these ideas today. And it comes from James 4. Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you. It's a pretty simple concept. If you draw near to God, He is going to draw near to you. When you set out to get close to God, He is going to come close to you. And this isn't just like a one-time idea in the Bible. You actually see this throughout the Bible. Zechariah 1:3, it states, "This is what the Lord says, return to me, declares the Lord, and I will return to you." Meaning, when you set out to come close to God, He will come close to you. And I think too, what this kind of means for us is the reality that we're as close to God as we want to be. You in your individual life, you're as close to God as you want to be. There's nothing on God's end standing between you and Him. There's nothing on His side of things keeping you from coming closer to Him. And I think too, if we can just kind of grasp this, I think it could really change our perspective and how we relate to God. I think if we understand that God makes the promise, if we want to come close to Him, He will come close to us, it could give us a huge amount of confidence when we try and draw near to Him. And so I just want to look, with this in mind, I just want to look at this story in the Bible and how this plays out. And so it's about a man named Zacchaeus and how he was interested in God and wanted to learn more, and he drew close to God, and we see how God draws near to him. So real quick, Zacchaeus, something you need to know about him, he was a tax collector. And so maybe you heard about a tax collector before. Basically what they are is the Roman Empire at this time has like taken over this area. It's kind of at the pinnacle of the Roman Empire. And this town, Jericho, where these people lived, there was these tax collectors, and they kind of like switched sides. So they were like a citizen of Jericho. And when the Romans took them over, they like switched and started working for the Romans. So they'd collect taxes from everyone, and they're also criminals. They would take more than what they were supposed to, and they'd pocket the rest. So I think of this like, if China was to like come and take over the U.S., it would be like our beloved Cordell just switches sides on us. And he starts taking all of our money. And not only does he take all our money, yeah, he's doing the money Manziel. Not only is he taking all our money, but he's taking extra and he's pocketing the rest. I think of it as like fair weather fans, more like opportunists, Patriots fans. I have not met one person who's like a legitimate Patriots fan. But yeah, there's these people, and they were very, well, no one liked him, to say the least. And so we're just going to look at this story. So it comes from Luke 19. It says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, I think this is important, God loves short people, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him. Since Jesus was coming that way, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately, and I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. So real quick, that is a sycamore fig tree, so you can kind of see, kind of an easy tree to climb unless you're short. I don't know, maybe use the ladder. But real quick, just on your own, when you look at this passage, think about what is Zacchaeus' attitude towards Jesus. So think to yourself, like what is an adjective you'd use to describe Zacchaeus in this situation? Is he angry? Is he timid? What would be a word you'd use to describe him? So like take 5 seconds to think about that. Cool. Did anyone want to share? What? Give me one thing to describe Zacchaeus. We can wait.
Eager.
He's drawn to Jesus.
Drawn to Jesus, yeah. Hunter, eager. I think you could say a lot of things. He's determined. He's eager. He's purposeful. He's hungry. He's a bunch of different things. I think one thing we could all agree on, and you can't deny the fact, Zacchaeus was curious. So every time I say curious, I think like Zechariah. I don't know, I kind of mix those up. He was curious. He was curious about Jesus, and he acted in a way where he could learn more. And you see how Jesus responds to him. Zacchaeus is curious. He draws near to God, and God draws near to him. And when you set out to come close to God, he will come close to you. I think, too, just one of the things about curiosity is we put ourselves in vulnerable situations when we're curious. And so Zacchaeus, right, he's like not well liked at all. He goes and like all these people who hate him are there, and he gets on top of a tree. Everyone's probably thinking like, what the heck is Zacchaeus doing? What the heck is Zacchaeus doing here? See, Zacchaeus, I can't do it. What is Zacchaeus doing here? But Zacchaeus doesn't care. He comes and he wants to learn more about Jesus. And so think too, like, man, I get super uncomfortable sometimes when I'm curious. Like, I never ask a question in class. To this day, I never raise my hand to ask a question because I got uncomfortable. Like when you raise your hand and you ask a question in class, like you put yourself in a vulnerable situation. It's uncomfortable. But it's also healthy. So there's actually studies done on people that say, I was going to say Zechariah again. Curiosity is healthy for you. People who are generally more curious live more healthy and they live longer. I think we were designed to be curious people. And I would also say that acting on our curiosity about God is actually a step of faith towards him. Have you ever been curious about God? Have you ever been curious about God to where you wanted to take a step closer to him? You wanted to take a step to learn more about him? Zacchaeus was curious about God, and he got in a position where he could learn more. And God rewarded that. Zacchaeus climbed a fig tree just to see Jesus, and Jesus called him out by name and said, hey, I want to stay with you. When you set out to come close to God, he will come close to you. And so what does being curious, I want everyone to think here, what does being curious about God look like for you? Maybe for some of us in this room, it's just coming to StuMo night. Maybe your friend invited you and you didn't really necessarily know what it is, but you were curious enough to at least come and check it out. Maybe being curious is getting a part of a small group and learning more. Maybe being curious about God is reaching out to someone who you know knows more than you and just ask a question that's been holding you up. Maybe being curious about God is actually trusting him with the situation that you know you need to trust him with, but you've been honestly just too uncomfortable to do that. What does being curious about God look like for you? So I also just want to look at kind of the tail end of this story and what goes on. If I can click there. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He is gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here I am. Now I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." I think a lot of us in this room think that if we want to draw close to God, we have to clean ourselves up first. I think this is a common thought. But when you look at this story, and when you look at every story in the Bible, no one changes before they come close to God. They come close to God and they experience him, they experience Jesus, and they're changed by it. They're changed by drawing near to him, and then they act differently. I think so much times in our life, we just try and white knuckle it and like, I'm just gonna be more patient. I don't know where Mitch is. He always uses the analogy of like, man, I'm just gonna try and be more patient, like up my overall, like it was a Madden statistic. Like I'm an 80 overall in patience right now. I wanna be a 90. And we just try and be more patient. But God actually gives us more opportunities where we can be patient. He sends a roommate into our lives that isn't cleaning up the dishes. I just saw a lot of people look around. He gives us opportunities where we could be more patient. And so it's not us cleaning ourselves up before we draw near to God. It's us drawing near to God, and that experience changes us. Zacchaeus was hated. He was considered, the people just call him a sinner. Like, would you love if your nickname was like, man, that guy's a sinner? Like you are known for the bad things you do. That's what he was known for. And yet Zacchaeus came close to God, and that changed him. God meets you where you're at. When you draw close to God, he will come close to you. Last part of this, Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost." Luke 19, 9 through 10. I think too, when we look at this story, it kind of just sounds like all this story is about is Zacchaeus drawing near to God. It's about Zacchaeus. It's about this moment where Zacchaeus steps on a tree and God calls out to him. But really, I think this story is actually much bigger than that. I think this verse explains that. This story is about Jesus drawing actually near to Zacchaeus, not Zacchaeus drawing near to Jesus. Jesus went to where he lives, called him by his name, and seeked a relationship with him. All Zacchaeus did was get on a tree. I think that's the same in our lives. Just like I said earlier, there's nothing on God's side from keeping us from becoming close to him. God has done a lot in our lives. I would be willing to bet God has done a lot in your lives to try and bring you close to him. He's waiting for you to come close. It's also not like Newton's third law, where every action has an equal and opposite reaction. But when we're curious about God and take a step near him, we allow ourselves to experience the millions of steps he has already taken towards us. It's kind of like if you've ever seen the movie Hitch, then the 90-10 rule, the 80-20 rule, I don't know. When you're like trying to kiss someone, you lean in 90 and you wait for them to lean in 10. God is leaning in 90, waiting for you to lean in 10. When you set out to come close to God, he will draw exponentially closer to you. And two, I think I just look at my life. My life was not characterized by being curious about God or being interested in God. My life was it was just all about people and what they thought about me. I think back in like high school, I just wanted to be like a star athlete, whatever. I wanted to do like the crazy stuff. I'd always like go to the parties, do the craziest thing. And I thought that would like make people like me. If I could be funny, people would like me. If I could be good, people would like me. And I started making decisions based off what other people thought about me. And I got to college and I started to do that more. I started to dive deep into everything college has to offer. And I just felt empty. And it wasn't until I believe God sent someone into my life to tell me about him and to encourage me to read this stuff on my own, to be curious about it. And I started reading this stuff on my own, and I realized God has a completely different life for me than the one I'd been living. See, God drew close to me, and he was waiting for me to lean in 10. When you set out to come close to God, he will draw exponentially close to you. And what happens when we take those steps is we're changed by it. I love how Hunter talked about, if you were here the past couple weeks, Hunter talked about when you're friends with someone, you kind of start to imitate them. I think when we draw close to God, it's the same thing. We start to imitate him. We start to think about things differently. We start to have different habits. And we become more like him. And what happens when we take those steps is we experience a joy far beyond anything else this world can offer. You see Zacchaeus, he's glad to give up what he has. He doesn't care about his material possessions. He doesn't care about what other people think about him. He gives it up out of joy. He wants to pay those back he wronged. Because the experience of him drawing near to God changed him. So real quick, I just want to welcome up Q. I want to hear about what it looked like for you to draw near to God. So everyone welcome up Q.
Hi guys, I'm Jacqueline or Q. I'm a junior here at CSU. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story and what that looked like. So growing up, I grew up in a Christian household. Both of my parents took me to church on the weekends, but I didn't really know what walking with God looked like until I came to college. But a lot of my childhood was kind of marked by this addiction in my family and a lot of struggles and brokenness that came with that. So in like elementary school and middle school, it was really hard to just kind of know like what my purpose was in life. I was just really confused and torn up by all of this stuff going on with my family because it was so unstable. And I began to realize that I was unstable if my family was unstable and if my circumstances were unstable. And then the first time I really saw God do an amazing thing in my life was when he brought my parents back together because they actually got separated when I was in high school, a freshman in high school. And then I actually saw them get back together and God completely redeemed and restored that relationship and my family. And so that was the first time that I actually saw him move mountains in my life, and I wanted to see what that could do for me personally. So going into high school, I just kind of floated through life. I would have definitely considered myself a Christian at that point, but not really reading my Bible, just kind of went to church. Really, he was more of a genie God for me. Just kind of talked to him, asked him for things that I wanted, if I was struggling, but didn't really care about what he wanted for my life or what he said was good for me. So I came to college, came to CSU. I'm from out of state, from New Mexico. And so I came here, went through recruitment, joined GFI, and really, life was good. So I kind of thought, but I went straight into the party scene, as you do when you come to college, because that's just kind of what I thought you did. Went out on the weekends, drinking, all that good stuff, and just realized it was not fulfilling after the 20th time doing it. Just really going home after nights, just feeling like this was, what else is there? What is more to life than this? There has to be more. And so just, I had a moment where I was like, there has to be more. And then I met this boy, and we started dating. And then he was a very sweet boy, but I just quickly found myself, disclaimer, quickly found myself going down a path I didn't want to go down. Just stopped recognizing myself, honestly, and was just kind of found myself lying to my friends, lying to my family, just not really feeling good about the person that I was in this relationship. And it was really confusing for me because when I was in this relationship, I sometimes felt super, super lonely. And it was really weird because I had this person who was telling me they loved me, they cared about me, and yet I still felt really broken and unloved. And it was a really weird thing for me to comprehend. And it wasn't until my parents literally sat me down and told me, hey, we don't really see our daughter in you anymore. And that was kind of a wake-up call for me, knowing that, wow, God is really trying to change me and bring me back home. So at that point, I kind of saw God just being you have to be all in or all out, pretty much. So then I got out of that relationship and just started running straight towards him. And what that kind of looked like for me was just asking for him to bring people into my life, just help me experience him more. And so he brought people like Natalie and Bailey, who were in GFI, into my life and just started bringing me around to StuMo. And that was amazing. I was completely welcomed in by everybody. And so that was amazing. And then I went to SMC and met one of my best friends, Maddie Lewis, and then just really started to feel like I had purpose for my life. These were my people. I'd finally found people that loved me for me. And then decided to go to Kaleo, which I'm sure some of you have heard about, this thing in California that we all went to, or a bunch of us went to. And God really showed me a lot at Kaleo. He really showed me what it meant to be loved unconditionally by him. And so I finally felt like I was loved. And because I had this endless source of love from God, I could be a source to other people. And he also showed me that no matter my circumstances, I could still have joy. If my family was falling apart, if something was happening, I could still be so joyful in circumstances that I shouldn't be joyful in. So that's a little bit about my story. I just encourage you guys to keep coming because, God did amazing things in my life through StuMo, and I genuinely think he can do amazing things in yours too. So.
Thanks, Q. There's a psalm, and it talks about God and how his love is greater than life, and because his love is greater than life, I will sing your praise. Have you ever experienced God's love like that? To where you experience God's love and your response is to go closer to him? I loved what Q said and just how she knew she needed people in her life, and she just asked God, hey, bring some people into my life. And he answered that. When you set out to come close to God, he will come close to you. There's nothing on his end of things keeping you from becoming close to him. So real quick, just want to look at some... Man, I can never figure out how to use this thing. Boom, there we go. Application. Act on your curiosity with God. I would be willing to bet there is something, wherever you're at in the spectrum, there is something you're curious about God. Something you're curious with about God. I don't know how to word that. You're curious about God with something. There we go. 90, yeah, I need to help on that one. I just challenge you guys to act on that. And so I kind of gave a list earlier. Maybe that's coming here more. Maybe that's talking to a friend. Maybe that's getting involved with a small group. But what is that for you? What is it for you to draw near to God? Another thing I want to talk about is come to SMC. I think SMC is an amazing opportunity for you to learn more about God. I think everyone who's ever been to SMC wants to go back, loved it, had a great experience. And I know, too, there's probably some of you in this room who are like, man, here we go, another SMC promo, whatever. Guys, I will never apologize, and I will never feel bad. I'm tripping over this thing, too. I will never feel bad for inviting you to SMC. SMC changed my life. I think it changed a lot of people's lives in here. And it's just awesome and it's fun. You get to hear from world-class speakers who work with college kids, who work with young adults, and all their talks are directed towards you. You get to go to these breakout sessions where you can literally learn about anything. You can learn about how do evolution in the Bible coexist. How do I be a leader in my fraternity, my sorority, my sports group, whatever. You can literally learn about everything. I think one of my favorite things too is just the community it brings. The first time I went there, I knew absolutely no one. I knew one person actually, but he knew absolutely no one too. And I came home with a ton of different friends. I met my roommate now there. Well, kind of. We got close there. But it is an amazing time for you to not only act on your curiosity with God, to be surrounded by people who are in the same spots as you, who struggle with the same things you do. And I think God rewards that when you draw near to Him. So real quick, I just want to pray for us, and then I think Al has a few announcements. So God, I just thank you for everyone who's here. God, I thank you, God, that you just make the promise that when we draw near to you, you will draw near to us. God, I pray that that would affect our confidence and that would bring us confidence. God, as we draw near to you, that you make, again, the promise that you would come near to us. God, I pray that whatever that is for us, you just give us the courage and you give us the strength to act on that, to actually draw near to you. So with that, in Jesus' name.